Good morning, everybody. My name is Martina Pisani, and I am an Italian student currently doing my PhD thesis at the University of Vigo within the Inter-University Doctoral Program in Advanced English Studies. My dissertation is centered particularly on the analysis of the concept of wit and its use in restoration comedies of the 1660s and 70s. I would like to start my presentation by answering three fundamental questions about this research, which are why, when, and what. The reason why this time frame and literary genre have been chosen as the main object of study of this thesis is because I am interested in understanding the importance and relevance of humor and what is known as wit in particular, and its use in English literature. From William Shakespeare's and Oscar Wilde comedies to more current screenplays of TV comedies, series, or films, wit is a recurrent feature. However, it can be stated that few moments in history were as interested in and gave as much importance to wit as the early modern period, and within that age, the decades after the restoration of the monarchy in 1660 contributed in an extremely significant way to shape the concept of wit and to establish its importance also for the following centuries. Therefore, in order to gain a deeper knowledge of the concept and use of wit in English literature, studying the restoration comedies can provide a good insight into that topic. Scholars such as Thomas Fujimura, for instance, have actually described them as comedies of wit. Apart from its crucial role in the war of sexes present already in Elizabethan comic plays, wit is an essential rhetorical and satirical tool in the political and class warfare shown in Restoration comedies. The analysis of that ideological aspect will be another aim of my research. As for the question of how this research will be done, I will try to briefly explain the methodology that will be used. In order to achieve the aims mentioned before, this thesis will combine the concepts and theories from the so-called humor studies on the one hand and the recent post-structuralist approaches to ideological issues focusing mainly on questions of social class, gender, and ethnicity on the other. Humor studies will provide us with the necessary theoretical framework to understand how humor in general, and wit in particular, works from a linguistic point of view, which we consider absolutely crucial in a study like the one we are doing. In this respect, the work done by scholars such as Victor Raskin and Salvatore Attardo, among others, will be very useful. But as the wit we will analyze is not found in a void, but in a wit repartee taking places between different characters of comedies that were produced at a certain time and place, and with the purpose not only to entertain the audience but very often to satirize and participate in the social and political debate of the period as well, we also need the theoretical basis to explain how humor works from the philosophical, sociological, and ideological perspectives. So studies such as the one cited in the slides, among others, will be important references to bear in mind. We also need to support and contrast our research with the most influential studies about restoration comedy. Just to mention a few, you can see in the slide part of the bibliography which will be used during this research. Obviously, this list will be continuously updated as the work will progress. The concept of wit will be the focus of the thesis because, despite its frequent use in literature and other cultural products, there are still many open questions about it and actually very few monographs on this topic. My contention is that the application of recent theories on humor can help us define this notion with more accuracy, as well as to analyze its use in the comedies of a period like the Restoration, which produced plenty of texts in which wit may be found. In order to achieve this aim, the first step will be to clarify what we understand by wit and consequently what its main characteristics are. This will therefore constitute the first part of the research. Then wit will be analyzed in a corpus of comedies that will be chosen, and the selection is still in process, but most likely they will be comedies belonging to the decades of the 1660s and 70s, which represent the surge in the use of wit on stage after the reopening of public theaters following their closure imposed by Oliver Cromwell. The comedies of playwrights such as George Etheredge, William Wycherley, John Dryden, or Aphra Behn, for instance, include many witty repartees and comments whose analysis can no doubt provide very interesting results, and I hope to be able to give you that information in my next participation in a graduate day. Lastly, I'm going to provide a quick outlook on what I have done up to this moment. The first part of my study period has been occupied by an extensive reading of dictionary definitions and humor theories in an attempt to identify and separate the subcategory of wit from the one of humor, and thus have a clear idea of what will be considered as wit in this dissertation. So far, four main characteristics of wit have been identified, plus an optional one, and you can see them cited in the slide. Furthermore, I have studied how the definition of wit has changed over time. This section will provide a crucial insight, especially on how the term was used and what it meant in the early modern period, why it became such an important feature of the English literature and language, and why it was so greatly valued by authors and playwrights of the period. This linguistic and cultural analysis constitutes the so far draft of the first chapter of my thesis. Related to this early stage of my study, I have presented two papers to the SEDERI international conferences in the years 2023 and 2024, which were well received. The SEDERI Association focuses on the study of the early modern period in England, and the networking during these conferences has proven to be extremely useful for my research. Thanks to the participation in these conferences, I had the chance to gather comments and suggestions from international experts in the field, as well as an interesting proposal to participate in a research project that is preparing an extensive database about restoration comedies. Lastly, I would also like to mention my attendance to the 2022 conferences of the International Society of Humor Studies, which gave me the opportunity to meet several international experts in this topic. I plan to present the results of my research also in future conferences of this association. Having said that, I wish to thank you very much for your kind attention, and I would be glad to answer any questions about my work that you may wish to ask.